draft
forward
is on
and
there.
all that.
I'll do it
I
right.
just didn't know what I was supposed to do. So what's
Recordings in progress.
Solid. Thanks, Jim.
get stuff?
We'll go ahead and call to order the Safety and Service Committee meeting for Tuesday, August 3rd. Roll call, we have myself, we have Marvin, we have Doug, we have Mayor Dutcher, Jim Leonard, Jack Liggett, Bailey Klimchak, and Teresa Monroe. Let's see, we have action on minutes here, July 6th. Any changes or? Entertain a
Move they be
motion.
approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, they are approved. Just like that, we're about halfway through our agenda tonight.
Right.
Oh, it doesn't mean you're getting out early though.
We like
One
that.
quits.
Teresa's like, damn.
What are you
We
doing?
order some food.
Okay, so, yep, I know that.
We've got item number 3, construction project updates per normal. Jim, Jack.
Did I start on that one, Jack?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, because that'll take most of the night.
yeah. We have our concept plan for the roundabout at 62. If I was better prepared, I'd have it up there for you. So while I'm pulling that up, basically we've expended the funds to evaluate the roundabout option versus the original submission, which was the signal. So we have met with the engineers a couple times, Jack, myself, Bailey, and we've come up with a design that minimizes the impacts to maintenance of traffic. So it'll be built offline and then tied back in north near the Michelson property. So let me bring that up real quick.
Now the daughter property.
Not yet, sure.
Jim, the original submission was for roundabout. Wasn't it?
Submission to who?
No, I'm thinking of Leafy Dell.
Leafy Dell. Leafy Dell was always.
Yeah, yeah,
around.
right, you're right.
So here is. There. All right, so. Wow.
Where did it
It
go?
was there.
It was there for a second.
I can't get used to this new system either, Jim.
I gotta go back to college. 1 second.
Too old for that?
Never too old to stop learning. Start learning.
Stop.
That's what you do.
It's-
when you're in
You
college.
could stop too.
Sure you don't want to end early?
All right. So what you see here is, gosh, not the one I wanted you to
No,
show.
that's not it.
I
That's
like
not
that
it.
one.
But that gives you something to talk about.
Well, it's, all 3 versions are there, aren't they?
Yeah, I just have to be
Yeah.
able to understand how to use things.
Yeah.
Technology.
I know.
I do know what I'm doing. I promise. All right, so
There
I'm
it
just gonna
is.
leave it right there.
There it is.
So as you, like I said, it was offline, it's offline, so we don't have to worry about maintenance of traffic. Avoids a house that we would have to take. You know, we're still gonna have to take 2 properties, one being a piece of the now daughter property, actually 2 pieces of 2 properties. And then the standard property as well. This takes into account the new driveway for Tech Rubber. They're on Sportsman's Club. It includes some wheel drag areas because of if you're gonna go on Sportsman Club and head east towards Utica on 62, you're gonna have some wheel dragging, so there's a little bit of red in there for, that's what that is. So, this is kind of the preferred alternative. We have a couple other designs, but there's some, rather, I don't want to say significant flaws, but we just think this is gonna be better. So now that we, unless you see glaring issues, we're gonna get started on design. But before we do that, I gotta tell you how much this is gonna cost.
And before you do that,
Warehouse there on the left. The office, I see the office. Driveway. Another driveway over.
Yes. It's gonna go away here and come over here to this gray area.
So that driveway's gonna be going to the right.
Yes,
To the left. he said. Wait,
existing driveway is shifting to the right.
it's gonna connect on this. one.
Closer to the office
Yeah.
building.
Yeah. And it's gonna come down to here, and then flow into the roundabout.
That existing one will just.
Yes,
So they're gonna ground up the road that's there now, once that.
Yes,
because in the end, this whole road section will disappear. Yep, it's
Yeah.
gone.
Sod it and then they're gonna grass seed it.
I think we're back to grass is what we were talking about, wasn't it?
yeah, back to grass and then it's ODOT right away, but we'll hopefully negotiate that
Continue.
into our coffers and then maybe use that as a way to offset the takes we're gonna take with other property owners. Well, we just gotta figure that part out.
The road looks more narrow than what's there right now. Is that just an illustration?
Yes,
What's the cost of this option?
so all built out, all four legs, because we're gonna do everything, plus a hefty contingency of 30% is 2 million and change, $2,033,000, 2033.
What did we originally project?
So what that 2 million does not get you is right-of-way services and right-of-way costs. Because we don't know. We can estimate services. It's not gonna be, tens of thousands of dollars. We have no idea what the cost of the right-of-way is gonna be. So our engineer has already confirmed with the State Infrastructure Bank that we can borrow more than we had originally planned for this if we need to. Money available.
Anybody else looking it up in their grants?
I would say no, but I'm gonna go back to them once we have this conversation. Because I don't want to go back to them if you're just gonna say, no way, let's just go to a signal. Then I don't need to talk to them, but if you like this idea, then I gotta go kick some more tires. and see.
Is there more of a safety justification for this rather than the signal?
Yes, because the signal doesn't, the original study wasn't going to, you could still have a argument that the intersection is still off skewed, even though it's gonna be straightened, because it's gonna be on a curve. So I think we can justify it.
Plus the speed reduction. Is not there, which these are natural. You can see how they got a slight curve in them that slows the speed down coming into the circle.
Right.
And our
That's-
contingency is $470,000 right now, just because this is a high arching concept. So we can begin to design it and that will slowly go down as we know the knowns. Now, this will have sidewalks on two, I think,
Yeah, two of the sides.
the Michelson side and the Tech side. It's gonna have streetlights, shooting matches in here.
Is there any concern that those that have already pledged money to it might look at this as more of an aesthetic option than a safety option?
Because I think the people that have pledged money to it understand that they're a better alternative than traffic signals.
There's a roundabout justification for Leafy Dell is the speed piece as well, talking about the incoming traffic, especially near that school zone.
And we asked ODOT to lower the speed limit to reduce that leg, that really long leg, and they won't do it without a speed study and all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
Heading
the
east.
Utica entryway, yeah.
Because that would reduce cost as well, but they're not interested because, well, they are interested, but we gotta spend another X
And-
amount of
10
dollars
grand for a speed study.
and who knows how long.
Convince them.
And it might say no. So tonight, I wanted to update everybody on that. And then, we do have the money to start the design through the grants and everything like that. But if there was a huge objection to continuing down this road, then obviously we would halt that. But
These are a better option, and the crash fatality records bear that out, but they are a more expensive option.
They're more expensive in the short term and in the long term because you don't have to update the mechanics of a signal and stuff like that. That's why we've
Which seems to happen less than every 10 years now.
frayed wiring, incorrect signal timing.
What's the other two options?
this is technically option two.
Nice thing about this option is, and I'm just throwing this out there before Jim changes it, is the Stennert property, we don't even get into any.
Yeah, we do. We
Well,
take a look.
just the tail, we're not taking buildings.
Right.
Where the other option,
trade
you'll
them
see,
other
we
land.
gotta purchase buildings. We're just taking that tail.
Just taking,
It's not gonna be nearly as expensive.
This one is in line with the road, so the maintenance of traffic will be significantly more. And it takes out the standard house, so we might as well just consider buying that entire property. During the process. Now, this cost. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't. This cost is 1.8 million. But I bet you're gonna have more money in acquisition, right away. acquisitions.
because that's not including the right of way. It's not including the purchase price of the property, yeah,
What's,
which is,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
And as Jim said, it's in center alignment of 62, so you're gonna have
Problem with
traffic,
maintaining.
maintaining traffic the entire time we're working there.
Well, the traffic that's coming from Utica will learn it's tied up and they'll go down North Ridge Road. What's the difference gonna be in the acquiring the property from Michelson Farm that they just purchased at a high price and getting rid of the eyesore? You're on there, Sean, I did say eyesore.
We don't know those, they have to get into the design. I asked the question, how much right away are we taking? They don't know because they haven't done the actual calculations yet, but we will know that sooner.
Because
than
we're
later.
not gonna build that anyway. That's just
But we'll still acquire the right of way.
still part of the right of way.
And
I
the
should
other-
say enough right away to build the circle as Jack mentioned earlier.
Yeah, not
We
the,
won't- we
not
won't
the
acquire-
stub.
We won't acquire this.
Yeah, right,
I'll dedicate that when it's built. We'll
right.
just acquire this little bit right here.
Okay, gotcha.
And the cost of the ground that's unimproved versus the improved ground, if it got into a push come to shove where you're taking it, if you've got houses and buildings versus farm ground, the cost is gonna be different.
Difference too. The corner lot is located in the village and the daughter's farm is not located in the village. So the corner lot has village zoning that would make it,
It's a commercial zone.
yes,
Mhm.
More
would
valuable.
probably be more valuable than the daughter's.
The third option you said, Jim? Just the signal.
The signal. We started with 3 options and we nitpicked those.
Well, the one is unsafe where it still comes in at an angle.
Yes.
That was not a viable option.
Yeah, we started with 3. 1 got kicked out. And then we refined these 2 that you see here.
So option one with the signal, are we saying what, $1 million plus acquisition?
Yes.
Okay. Option two is the roundabout, but we'll say offset plus acquisition is 2 point what?
3.033.
So 2 million.
And
And
those
then
both have contingency costs of 30%.
that are not included in that 2 million.
Yeah, they are.
They are, okay. And then the third option that you just showed is the right of way.
I'll send this out to you as well.
But how much is this again? 1.8?
0.8.
I think the biggest thing for me, I don't know, when you look at the purchase price of the potential acquisitions, and then the major difference between the 2 roundabouts is the traffic maintenance piece. With as much traffic as we see down 62. Man. How long of a project would this be?
We don't know.
Build out?
We're not there yet.
I
I mean, probably one construction season.
Have that traffic maintenance and that 62 corridor blocked up again.
They, most of the traffic comes down 62 from Mount Vernon and Utica. Okay, they'll either go down 661, go down 79, or go down North Ridge Road. They won't sit in that traffic all that time.
I know I wouldn't.
They'll find other alternate routes. The public, public's pretty,
Let's jump connect.
one that they could go down Nichols Road. and-
Yeah. That's true.
To Concord,
Huh?
Nichols to Concord.
Yeah, well, I come to town though, go on down, you can
Yeah.
go
Absolutely.
right onto one
I'd
sixty.
do North Ridge Road down to
Reason,
Alexandria and be done with it.
161.
I would do that today.
I like this plan because it's gonna get rid of the problem that's always gonna be there.
You're talking the corner lot.
The corner, yeah. You got that area in the town built up real nice.
This is
We're
less
gonna
of
do a
a,
lot of good things out there and that building's gonna stay there.
this is less of a footprint. I mean, you're not then improving onto farmland. You got minimal acquisition cost on the other side.
This is
It really centralizes the project.
This is 1.8, 1 point, without the acquisition.
1.8.
cost,
Right.
Without the acquisition.
But even if the one side of the road takes $500,000, that brings you up to 2.3. And how much is it gonna cost to buy that property from the other side over there?
Oh, yeah,
It's gonna cost a couple $100,000 to buy that, so you're almost at a wash.
Engineering, what is the cost estimate on engineering moving forward with that? You know,
Sorry, you guys just emailed me on the school district stuff. It
those
was all one. I'm sorry, what?
so, what, do we have a cost estimate on engineering? What's needed to go forward for engineering? Is it, I'm sure it's different by,
Didn't we just get that today, actually?
you just are looking for a motion from safety and service to move forward and then update council tonight? Is that?
Correct.
Okay.
Um. 191,000 right now. Which is about 10%.
Say 10%?
It's 191,000.
That's the contingent.
That's the engineering cost
Okay.
Well, the
and,
funda-
and inspection, contract administration, the whole,
The whole,
made it clear, give us everything.
give us, don't pick us off little at a time,
Right.
but give us all the numbers at once.
But we're looking to align on a design tonight. Is that what we want?
It sure help us out. Absolutely.
Your idea was the first proposal that you showed where it's offset. Is that where you guys had landed?
Yes.
And that's mainly just because of the through traffic aspect.
Yeah, maintenance of traffic and less right of way take. With the information we know now, if right of way was less or more, obviously that would. But I agree with Marvin, taking the property gets rid of a corner
Sure.
eyesore.
So fundamentally, then the difference, really what we have to decide first is moving from a signal to a roundabout. And then whether or not we have the ability to encumber the additional dollars as a village or increasing the budget price 100% to what we originally discussed.
But I think the goal is not to use village money if we can find other money.
Yeah, our SIB loan rate would stay the same. Which is peanuts, the interest rate.
It's nothing. So, you want to borrow it,
Sure.
with those dollars.
What is that? Do you remember offhand what that breakout was?
1%.
What?
Isn't it 1%?
Like what the annual payback would be on that? I can't remember. They don't think it's in debt service.
It's not listed there.
It will be next year.
Yeah.
My whole thought too is we got through Coshocton Street being closed
Twice.
twice. Why can't we get through that one being closed and just put signs out the road 5 miles? We're gonna be waiting for 5 days to get through.
Yeah,
We've learned signage is critical.
I just,
pack a lunch.
just hate to make too many compromises and go that way and be sorry that that's there to look at. That's a gateway into town.
It's
And
like,
if all
yeah.
the things is gonna happen up there and the buildings and stuff's all gonna be nice.
And one construction season isn't too terribly bad. It's on the outskirts of town. It's not downtown. You don't have the offset of the street. It just looks a little strange if you were to get rid of that when you've got a little curve in. So you've got a road that's going to be around for 50+ years. You bite it and just deal with the traffic closure for 12 months. I mean, less than that.
Yeah,
in
but I don't think you have to
construction season.
close it.
It's not going to be closed.
You'll
but
maintain
restricted,
traffic, but
yes.
it'll be restricted.
So do you deal with that for 6 to 8 months or whatever and have the payoff for 30, 40
I'll be
years?
sorry for the rest of your life you didn't do it.
Sure.
You get it in, you spend that money. And we didn't get what we originally started talking about, the compromise, and then we're sorry we compromised.
I'm just curious from the SIB loan perspective, if we're able to borrow more and use that outlet as a default, if we're not able to increase the grant from, other partners that are included in this, if that's our worst case scenario to fund it, do we at least feel comfortable with that? And if that's the case, then I think I default to roundabout every time, just because of the long term.
Well, there's a reason all these other municipalities and government, they're not, even if they're not a municipality, they're all
Tell me-
building roundabouts. They're
Tell
not
me they
building
put over
traffic.
on Hamilton Road between
Mm-hmm.
161 and
Hannah or
shopping center over there. There's what,
or,
3 or 4 there?
go Fancher and back that way. All of that, as you get into Franklin County, it's all roundabouts.
My computer decided to freeze.
I've got a hammer in the car.
I could use it. Try a different way.
Well, Jack, while Jim's looking at that, between option 1 and 2 that we looked at, offset versus onset, taking the traffic maintenance consideration out of the equation, do you have a preference between the two? Would you rather see it mirror the road that it's on now?
The only thing that caused my preference leaning towards the offset was I think the acquisition of ground was going to be less expensive. That was weighing on my mind because this is costing so much more than the traditional white. So I was looking to try to save dollars where we could. And the only other thing, and Jim, you might be able to help me on this, but I think the turning radius coming off of Sportsman Club, they said was better than with the on-site. They had a little more room
You
to
got more,
sweep and
yeah.
make the turn for the extremely large trucks. Now, we're certainly not going to build something that a truck can't make the sweep coming off Sportsman's Club and turning to the right will make. But they said the offset being pushed over a little farther gave them a little more
Yeah.
room for those large trucks to make a more comfortable sweep. Jim, was that correct? I'm sure I heard that in the meeting. So for my personal preference, it was all about trying to offset some of the additional $1 million of a in-town commercial lot versus an out-of-town farm ground. It's going to be cheaper to purchase that ground. Marvin's points all very well pointed. If that's a picture in that corner we want to get rid of, then that's something else. And then I would want to investigate just a little more thoroughly that corner sweep with the engineers that if they felt I mean, they're showing us a picture of it, so I'm sure they feel okay about it, but they did take the time to mention it is gonna be a little tighter than if we do the offset.
To answer that question, in my mind, you've got the tightest corner in the county, 62 and 37.
It is,
How many trucks do you get through there? And how many of them get caught on the bell and how many of them make a turn?
I can't buy more bells though. They quit making.
Well,
Really?
I just,
That's what-
if you get a trucker that knows what he's doing, he'll make the turn.
Absolutely.
And as far as $1 million to acquire that property, it might be zone commercial, but it has no commercial activity on it. So they're not gonna be able to say that we got a commercial viable building. It's not like you're taking
Well,
a
the
big
owner,
bear
the
down.
owner of that property wanted to push through a quick change to commercial property for a reason.
Well,
'Cause He
that's
knew
his,
we were looking at that.
that's his prerogative to do that.
And I'm not saying he should. Matter of fact, that's probably exactly what I would have done if I saw somebody looking at it, see if I could get it changed to commercial. But that designation does make that ground more valuable.
3%. And we borrowed 509,000.
So to answer your question, Ben, to me, either one is a viable
We haven't
project. The
taken it,
reason
right.
I gave the initial nod to the first one was I thought we could offset a little bit of the money, commercial property versus farm ground. And that one engineer's comment that I would like to dig in just a little bit deeper. Other than that, I have no preference.
Fair.
But if we acquire that property, we do it not offset. We acquire that property, that's village property, we can back that up and start that sweep
Maybe a little cleaner
ahead of time.
than that picture. Yeah, if the village owns that, maybe we could widen that turnout.
3%, Jim.
Does anybody know what the Nicholson Farm?
I think it's 10
Oh, the Michelson, no,
I
no.
a year.
I don't know.
We could find out.
And, you know, the daughters bought it and, you know, regardless of what they bought it for, they have, I'm sure, a number in their mind that they'll want. My whole thing was if agreements couldn't be reached and it got to where we're talking about a ground take, rural farm ground is cheaper than commercial ground.
Well,
That was
now-
all I was.
To get back to the other point, that was also in contract to Fisher for housing development.
Mhm.
And they could come back and say, you're taking our land, it's potential housing development.
It's still not designated as commercial ground.
No, it's
still-
not,
It's
but-
still farm ground. So when you go to a ground take, that's how it's gonna be designated as farm ground. And you can say you can build anything you want on it, but it had to be rezoned, to make that work.
That'd be annexed.
And I'm not being argumentative, Marvin. I really don't. care which
Just
way you go.
discussion, Jack. I'm not arguing with
Yeah,
you.
okay. I want to make sure I'm not steadfast one or the other. I just looked at those two options were the only differences that I saw in them.
I just think down the road in 5 or 10 years, if we do that one option, 2 million, and we drive out through there and see that, I personally probably gonna be disappointed that we didn't do it right the first time.
Very good point, and I think
And
well worth discussion.
if the rest of the buildings out there, don't they have a lot of plans for different things out there? In that direction?
I mean, yeah, Tech, we're running a water line out to the Johnson property.
So I said my piece.
And I don't disagree. I'll reiterate what Jack said. We can go, the inline version.
I don't care about the traffic issue.
Well, they block these roads off all the time. We had 62 blocked off in Shopton Street.
Well, it's gonna happen again next year,
You don't have to keep looking, Jim.
just a little farther out.
Curious now.
At the same time as this.
Well, I don't know how fast this thing's gonna roll.
Yeah, we can do it on both sides of town.
Well, then they could hit 310 and just go all the way around.
Well, then you'll get to the council.
Just so you know, this is not what I submitted, not my Podunk handwriting. These are my notes.
It's a 10-year, 500,000 for 3%.
Yeah.
And then we have another 500,000 that's been pledged from other partners,
600.
600 for the 1.1. Then the balance would be, probably another million plus whatever, with
So we-
whatever
Can we trade them some property somewhere?
acquisition.
Yeah, how much was this, how much was the dig under the road for the sewer? That's on our side of the ledger. We can collect on that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm not grabbing what you're telling me.
We took care of Sean with the
Oh, yeah. Yeah, on.
sewer
The
connection.
lateral to his
Yes.
property. Yes.
So that's on our side of the ledger, so we'll collect on that
Yeah.
and get that for.
Well, I would hope we could collect on that.
At today's rate.
Hmm?
You just
today's
run it in
rate.
over there. There's no tap solar in it.
Well, they hadn't.
No, everything.
Hadn't gone
everything's
by
scrubbed
his
to
property
property.
yet.
There was a bore underneath that road.
We ran it
That's-
across for him,
That's not a, and to be fair, we ran it across to every place there was a house.
for everybody.
It was not a house.
Except his, he
on
didn't
that
have a
lot,
house because he tore it down.
But,
His
I
plan
think
is
he
to
used
have
as
a
a
house.
bargaining chip.
There.
So we took,
yeah, so,
was the
so
right-
it's over there now. I mean, and that was something that was not in the original plan. Johnstown paid extra to get that done. How much he will value it.
probably not, but that's all right. But we'll have fun reminding him. of
Yeah, yeah. No, we always have that right.
Wants to collect his side.
Well, for me, 3%, 500,000, we have the ability to continue to get more and maybe ask for other partners to chip in a little more. It makes sense to me to go the roundabout option. In all honesty, looking between the two, in my opinion, just talking through it, I think aesthetically, it would look a little strange to have the road offset, to be honest with you, just aesthetically for
You Just
a
see it from the air.
a few, a few couple months relative to maintenance of traffic. Feel better if we could just mirror the road the way that it is. Understanding right of way, and acquisitions might play another part into it, but it just feels like the better long-term thing to do, in my opinion, relative to that. I just
If
hope
we
can
have
get
that
some-
ground, we can take care of that issue with the turn.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely talk to him about that. If we're owning that whole section of property, we could do whatever we
A
needed.
lane and a half if we had to.
Yeah. Make a large berm on that
Mhm.
side so they
Mhm.
did have room to swing across. Absolutely.
What are your thoughts, Doug?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you and Marvin, where we mirror the road right now, and we just back the traffic up. Put the signage out and
They'll learn.
You won't have it.
and I really, I think getting rid of that property right there would really clean that up.
It looks.
So we're gonna call that roundabout onset option
In line.
in line.
In
line.
Okay,
Oh, me.
1.8 starting out.
yeah.
That'll go down. just As plans are developed.
Yeah, as Jim said, there's a 30% contingency in that 1.8.
You start at 1.8, you lower that contingency as it goes along, then you're starting at a lower dollar amount. If you're
You
going
take the
long
variables.
position
right?
anyway.
Come reasonable money.
Yeah, so then you need a motion and a second to move forward with that option and to initiate,
Recommendation.
recommendation, and to initiate the designing.
Sounds good to me. Yes, please.
I'll move. Whatever Ben said.
Did you catch that, Teresa?
No, please, can you please, I mean,
Option
sort of,
Whatever Ben said.
Option 2 at 1.8 million, the straight line.
yeah, the straight
In
line.
line.
Yeah, in line, straight line.
Recommend that option and move forward with design. I'll second, just to make it easy.
Go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we'll bring that up to
You
council
didn't
tonight.
say aye.
Good.
Did I?
Oh,
Aye.
I thought you said all right.
Aye.
Oh, I got.
Aye. So we'll bring that up to council tonight. That way we can review it again and get any feedback from the other three members, I guess, with the
Right.
ship you're weighing into, so.
All right.
Very good. So that's one construction update.
Yep, other projects, let's start with the water tower. We're we're getting some movement on that. The base is poured. And now they're working on the very next lift, which is a 4-foot section of lift. And then this particular subcontractor will be done. Because they just come in to pour the foundation and base. Then Phoenix will actually move in to start on the way up to where the tower goes. So everything is moving along fine. That project, we were concerned about rebar and steel delays, has not happened. Everything's moving along just fine. South Oregon Street has, oh, go
You
ahead.
have a tentative wishful completion date on the tower?
Oh, trying to think, what was that?
Spring, isn't it?
Spring of
Spring.
22.
23.
22.
23.
It's not gonna,
All of next year?
it's not gonna be spring of 22.
You can get a boom truck that high, them guys have to.
I thought it was spring of 20. Honestly, that's in my brain. If I'm mistaken, we'll make a correction.
We'll just tell them if it got finished before under budget and under time.
If they can get her done in spring of 22, that's fantastic.
It's a really mild winter.
Yeah. But I will check.
Anyway,
I-
sorry.
I don't mean to be
And I'm not trying to discredit what you're saying.
argue,
Joe.
well, and I'm not trying to describe, for some reason, 23 is ingrained in my,
Spring of
We
23.
got a personal photographer out there taking pictures and all.
so.
We'll have a brochure when they get through with it.
So yeah, if they can get her done in spring 22, that really is fantastic.
Britt Feathers is thrilled with it and he's taking pictures every day for us.
Here, Let me check on that, because I don't know why, Jim, I'm still thinking it's 23, but I got so many projects floating,
Been wrong before.
maybe not.
That's fun.
No. And that would be the first time I was wrong, so I'm due one.
Get your feet up, boys.
I don't have my boots on. Look overall.
Don't wanna
Just
read.
just joking. The South Oregon project has started. The service lines are going in. They are going in a little slower than I had hoped.
Substantial completion on or before August 31 of 22,
I see.
For the water
August.
tower.
Summer,
Split the difference.
August.
with everything
Christmas
online by
of 22.
September 30th of 22. So we were in the middle,
Yeah, so it'll be done spring of 23.
according to the contract.
You're still right. You still haven't made a mistake.
Okay, all right. Well, I knew it wasn't spring of 22. That was just too quick. But if we can be done by September, that is wonderful. Because I was planning on, and this is the reason it was in my mind, inside of our existing tower was going to be done in 23.
Yeah,
And
they had to put it
and
off.
the very beginning of 23, as soon as it warms up. So, but no, that's wonderful. If it is done in August, thanks, Jim. Appreciate that. And back to South Oregon, that project is moving a little slower than I want. So the end of this week, I'm going to count the number of services that run across there. Call the contractor. I don't like the pace that the work's being done because I think it's going to hinder paving. I think they need to move faster or possibly bring in a second crew so they can stay on pace. So, but anyway, it's started and they're working on the section between Douglas and Jersey Street right now.
Have we given the school an update?
No.
Do you think we should?
Well, one thing is Oregon is no longer a main pathway from
That's true.
the old elementary.
That's true
the
because that
school.
building, Searfoss isn't opened up
Yes.
Right.
But it never hurts to keep that line of communications open with this, with the school. Let them know
yet. You
what
don't
we're
want to
doing.
be the.
It's worked so well.
I'm just.
Yeah,
throwing it
no,
out there.
no, I have no problem with that, you know.
Speaking about, I want to hit one more thing on South Oregon,
Go
unless,
ahead.
unless you got more to
Go
talk
ahead.
about.
I was ready to move on.
Chief, I just call out with South Oregon, Doug, as you mentioned, the school. They've got that arboretum all all blocked off at this point. Whereas before, with the pickup and drop off, at least the pickup for the schools back there, the junior high, I guess now, is they would stack those cars would be stacked down Oregon, and then they would be stacked down Williams over to the arboretum. And so now that they don't have that area to stack, it may be a good idea if you have contacts at the school to reach out to understand what their traffic pattern plan might be for the start of school.
Very good idea.
Um,
I'll reach out to Mrs. Almond.
because there's always been call outs about going over Jersey Street and having people in the intersection and stage down Oregon or stage down Williams. And it was a big thing, when the school opened up with that traffic pattern, but losing that staging space, it might be a good idea just to understand what the plan is.
A very good call.
On our sanitary sewer project on 62, all the pipe is in the ground on the 62 portion of that, what we call phase 1. And so there has to be air tests done on it, leakage tests done on it. And then in the fall, we'll certainly get the topsoil and reseed on that. Phase 2, which is the Mink Street portion of that, that's the 16-inch relief sewer running from just about Anaway. It's a little short of that onto the sewer plant. That will start Monday. And phase 1 went very, very well. No problems. Phase 2, we did run into the force main that runs from Concord Crossing all the way down to the sewer plant. So we're having to make a small adjustment, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a big hindrance there. For the water line that you folks agreed to run down Duncan Plains from 62 to the new Commerce Park, I have just got the agreements in yesterday. I will get those reviewed and I would say signed by the end of the week to start design on that work. And I think we're looking at about $17,000 for design.
Can I get on that?
Absolutely.
So that I know all our projects are fast tracked, but the state controlling board approved our $200,000 yesterday for,
We have a time frame when they're going to start work.
well,
It's got to be next year
I would assume so.
because of the paving. There's no way.
Jared's running the project, so that's a good thing.
Yeah,
But that money is official because I don't think Jared has to do anything. Council tonight will see our resolution for 50 grand. So that'll be the last piece of the funding puzzle. So you might want to just get with Jared and figure out what his timing is.
yeah. If Jared has a time, yeah, that would be good because I will try to get this thing set and bid ahead of that.
And I'm sure he would say he'll bump his schedule back to accommodate the line crossing.
Yeah, but I never like to ask them guys to slow down, but
True.
we definitely want to be across the road. So I'll give him a call.
And the company that's necessitating the linchpin and all this, I talked to them this morning and things are progressing well. And we're still on track, hopefully for a end of September, early October closing.
Good.
How about shovel in the ground?
That I can't tell you. As long as they close, that means, that's all I care about. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Westview, of course, they threw some seed down there about 3 weeks ago and hot, dry, hard, not going. So this is what I've done. I've turned an option out to them that we're waiting a response on. I said, let's deduct $3,000 off the total value of the contract. We'll close it out, let you guys get done. And then later on this fall, when it cools down a little bit, because we're coming into August and we're going to get a few showers and some rain, the village will take that $3,000 that they reduced from the project and we'll do the seeding and overlay in-house. They have not agreed to that, but that way I can close that project, get it done.
But-
Otherwise, we'll keep retainage on that project and then
Right.
we'll try to pull them back again. And I think they'll really think about it because they would like to be gone and be done with this project as well.
How much money is held back? How much money is held back on them, any?
Well, they're wanting, they want their last payment,
That's what I,
which we're not doing because I said the grass still hasn't grown. And, you've seeded it twice now to know,
how much is their last payment?
oh, I think Dana's not here, but I think they've got a last payment of about 100,000.
Give you 3% to get 100.
So, where I was at is I just said, so you can get done, so I can clear the books, we'll have the money.
They're actually, by the time you get seed labor and everything, and they sent people back here, it's probably gonna cost them 1,500, 2,000.
Yeah, they felt, I did get an initial comment. We think that's a lot for seed. And I felt, well, that's our offer. Otherwise you can come back and work on it.
Let me buy top grade seed.
So, well, and over there across from Wits, initially I had to put sod in there and pin it to get it to hold. And that's an area that keeps washing out. So, I may have to do that again, which would eat the whole $3,000 up by the time I sawed that little section. But that's what I had to do originally when we put the sidewalk in. Croton Road, it's ready to go. Final walkthrough and improvement on that. The water lines work fine, pressure's fine, hydrants work well. So we just gotta get the paperwork to close that project out and release their retainage on.
We need a resolution to accept it.
Yeah, but that paperwork's not final. That final walkthrough, I've got to do that first. There is a little question on that end fire hydrant. It's not up the bank as far as I would like it. They're saying that there is some fiber behind it that hindered them. They should have got more pipe and went under it and brought it up, because those self-draining hydrants, if you set them right in the bottom of the ditch, all the water drains to it. A self-draining hydrant can work both ways. If you have it up on the hillside and gravel around it, it drains out and then drains down to the ditch. So in our bacteria testing, that was the only area that we had any trouble. And I think it was because influence of groundwater. So I'm going to see if we can get that moved and that project will be ready to close up. Preliminary meetings with both water and sewer plant expansion. We're good, got process narrowed down. Both projects are beginning to move. I think that's all of them, isn't it?
Sounds good to me.
That's all I want to talk about.
Oh, paving of the,
Oh, you're right.
paving of
Edwards
The
the,
Road
north
and
end
North-
paving, Edwards Road and all that,
Well, that was-
that is out to bid.
oh, they did put it
It
out.
is out. It went out
Oh, good.
the very end of last week.
Oh, when do we think?
Let's see, it's, I think we opened bids the third week of this month.
So it'll be September sometime. We're not gonna run into delays and then
Well, here's our biggest problem.
plants close and we're sitting there.
Here's our biggest problem is weather at the end.
Yeah.
They're saying they can pave clear up through October if the weather's decent. But paving companies that are already not completely booked through the end of the year. So I put a call out to the group who is doing the paving on South Oregon and said, hey, that's all going to kind of work about in your time frame. I would like you to take a look at that job. Of course,
While
we'll have
you're-
anybody look at the job,
While you're here,
but you're already here and your equipment will be here.
right?
So, but that is out to bid.
Okay.
Remember a few years ago, before this last paving of 37 between Johnstown and Alexandria, they paved that in late October. And that pavement didn't last 3 years.
We definitely will have, because the road surface has to be a certain temperature and our inspector will shoot that to make sure the road surface meets that temperature before we put pavement down. It depends on the year. We've had years that it gets cold snap early. We had other years, you go clear into November and it's still nice. So, but we will not put pavement down if the road is not at the proper temperature to accept it.
You brought up Mink Street. I was surprised to see road cuts in Mink Street. I get,
Let me guess.
yeah, I was disappointed.
Had no choice.
Yeah,
Gas line had to be moved out of the way of the sewer.
that's fair.
I want to ask you, what's going on Jersey Street?
Well, that's what he's talking about. The gas company is moving. After all the initial markings and we designed where the sewer line was going to go, the the gas company came out at the last oops locate and marked a line right down through there that had not been marked previously.
You're talking about West Jersey?
He's
or
talking,
East?
he's talking about east,
I'm talking about east.
where they're moving the poles for a
Moving the
project.
poles.
Oh, well, that is the poles that were supposed to be moved 2 years ago for our East Jersey project. They're just now getting around to do it.
Here, I thought you'd really made some kind of a miracle getting them done. I didn't know you've been
I
waiting
think
2
for them to
years.
move the poles is a miracle.
I wouldn't even go close to them. I was so shocked.
Yeah, but so no, they actually called us and asked if that project had been bumped because they're extremely busy, and I told them no. I said the reason the road's not being worked on is because your poles are in the way.
Good for you.
And the reason the road can't be worked on until those poles are moved. So line that up as my thought as our number one Ohio Public Works project for next year. And I would say only project, see if we can get that and get East Jersey done. Yes, Mayor.
I was gonna ask you about markings on North Oregon. Between Main Street or Coshocton and Maple. There are a bunch of water line markings going on there. There's some by the firehouse.
Oh, oops markings.
Yeah, it's whose were those?
I think you asked me about that. And I
Yeah.
checked with Mike and Mike said,
And I thought they're not gonna be digging the Oregon Street up.
no, I forget what Mike, this was a couple months ago, I think, maybe.
Yeah,
I think,
I hadn't talked to Jack and I just
I don't think,
I honestly don't know who that oops locate is for.
I don't either.
Okay,
However, if there's any work in the road, a road wide right of way permit would have to be signed before they get into the road.
okay. I just didn't want us
So,
to,
and
I thought we were trying not to cut into our,
Yeah.
once we get them paved, we don't
well,
want
to the best of my knowledge, there's been no request for a road right of way permit.
Thanks.
Mhm. I think that's all I have.
Right.
Is our plan on South Oregon to do the no seam paving again?
Yes,
Okay,
any road that is under 24 feet, we want to do the no seam paving.
okay. Just curious. Any other construction questions? Updates?
Thanks, Jack.
Appreciate it. A lot going on. The next item here, ordinance 32-2021 is on for this evening. As an introduction that came from planning and zoning. I put it on for safety and service. And the discussion that we had, just like we do with, financial ordinances and things like that, and run them through finance. The conversation that we had in planning and zoning with this had a lot of the safety call outs for it. So just wanted to have the conversation here before we go into the introduction for it this evening. So Bailey, I didn't know if you, just for committee, wanted to, Marvin, I know you were at the meeting, but if you wanted to maybe give a quick update, recap. I think you've got a staff report on it, but for that piece specifically, did you want to touch on anything?
Sure. This ordinance is requiring that residents they can't put their trash can out earlier than the day before trash pickup, and they must remove it no later than the day after trash pickup. And it states that containers are not to be stored on public sidewalks, in the right of way, or in front yards. And we're doing this sort of as a public safety thing, and also public aesthetics, and we just don't really want full trash cans out there too long. We don't want them out there 24/7. They smell, they attract animals. So this provides us some rules around trash cans.
Can I ask you a question, Bailey?
Yes.
Where did this become a major problem, Johnstown? Do we have more than 10 or 20 people that do this?
I'm not sure of the exact amount, but we do have people who leave them out by the road, by the roads all the time. They never take them in.
we tried giving them a letter or anything like that?
Yes, we've talked to people on the phone. I'm not sure if we've sent any certified letters, but we've talked to people on the phone and sent some emails multiple times.
Who were those people you sent them to?
I know I don't have specific names, but I know one of them was actually a rental property, and the landlord lives out of town, and she basically said, it's not really my problem if my residents don't bring their trash cans in. So it gives us something to enforce. It gives us a little backup.
I just don't see where it's been that great a problem. We have to pass laws for everybody in town because you got 8 or 10 that's breaking the rules. If they don't take their trash cans in, send the village truck out there and pick them up and take them to the dump site.
We don't really have authority to do that.
If they're blocking the street, you do. I just can't see every time a little problem comes up, that we have to pass laws and get the town all upset, people upset about this. And when you was here at the meeting, you got 2 people that keeps stirring this up on Facebook, trying to run the town with Facebook, like I said at the meeting. And how much of that are we gonna put up with? I think that there's other ways of getting around this and taking care of it and passing another law and getting the good people in town upset about it.
Why don't I give my opinion on it, because we talked about it in planning and zoning. The way that I view this piece is that, to your point, if something is blocking the road, I think that's a different conversation altogether. The genesis of this is having conversations through our proposed zoning code update. Like, we have several ordinances on for tonight that came out of reviewing that. And so this was a part of that when we're talking about rubbish and junk and weeds and all that stuff. And the way that I remember Jim Blair talking, I think it was similar, Bailey, to what you were talking about, is there are several instances in town, and it seems to be an annual thing, just constantly, where there are folks that don't pull those in, and there really isn't any recourse for the village to do much of anything about it because we don't have anything on the books about it.
Every time you come up with a new ordinance, and they don't want to go out and cite these people or say anything to them, we have to get a new ordinance.
Well, you need some teeth somewhere to be able to enforce what you're
We
asking to
also
be
need
done.
a free society to live in.
Well, sure.
How many ordinances and things are we gonna put the people in this village under? There
What?
comes a part where they gotta use a little bit of common sense as well as we do. And I think you could talk to these people. Give me a number, how many people's doing it?
Sure. And I think that's
Is it
Jim.
5 people, 10 people, 100? How
And
many's doing it? We're passing a law for everybody in town. You got 1,800 houses in town. Is 20 of them doing it? 10 of them doing it? 5 of them doing it? How many?
Sure.
I want a number.
sure. And I'll take that as a rhetorical question, because I think Jim Blair is the one that's closest to it, who would have that number in front of him. So I certainly think that's something that can be asked. But to that point, anything that you look at is something that you pass today for situations that you're looking at today, as well as what could potentially happen in the future. If you're looking at statistics, and the more you see our population grow, there's an argument that statistically you see situations like this grow, or at least the potential for them. So the way that I look at it is as a safety issue, pulling them up from the street to ensure they don't get blown into the street. You've got 72 hours, 3 of 4 of 7 days during the week that it can be down there at the curb. If there's any kind of an issue, this might negate it, but at the end of the day, it's not as if, the way I understand it, we're not hiring a trash inspector to drive around and ensure that at 11:59 p.m. on 2 days before, that something isn't out there or it's not pulled up the day before. But
Is this gonna be enforced any better than our sign ordinance?
any better than our sign ordinance?
Yeah.
I don't know. But to that end, it's to have something out there as a baseline to work against, whereas right now we don't have anything out there to work against. And at the end of the day, that's where it is. I'd say the vast majority of people in the village, 95%, 98%, it's not going to affect, to your point, absolutely. But in those instances where you have individuals over time that are affecting this, where there needs to be correction, right now, there's no recourse to do that. Unless it is in the street, directly contributing to a public
Say
safety
play
issue.
devil's advocate for a minute,
Sure.
okay? If we don't have time to send a courtesy letter, how are we gonna find time to enforce this?
It sounds like we have consistent
Well,
people.
we need to follow that up with a certified letter.
I cannot send a certified letter if I mean, I could, but I don't have anything to back that certified letter up with. That's what I'm saying. We've called people, we've emailed people, we've talked to people, but past that, we don't have any recourse. We don't have anything to back it up. We can't send them to court. We can't fine them because it's not a law.
Okay. And I think I'm in agreement with Marvin on what is the true number. How do we get that number? That's my thing. How do we actually get a number?
We got 1,800 houses, a little more than that now in town. Now that 1,800, how many people's actually violating?
Is Jim going to be here tonight? Do you know? That we can ask him that question when we introduce it tonight.
But I don't even know an answer how to get that information, Marvin. How do you do that?
Well, if they come up with an ordinance, it's evidently a problem. They should know how many residents are affected by it.
I agree with that. But
Probably the
my
number.
question is, how do you get the number?
What'd you say?
I'd say that we probably have X amount of complaints, right, Bailey? People are calling and complaining.
People call.
And are they given an address when they're complaining?
Normally they do, yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, Jim may have, I've written X letters to these houses.
He keeps a record of letters that he sends, yeah.
Yeah,
On our new computer system, is there a way to track complaints at an address?
We don't allow the public to provide complaints on the computer system because we like to have the members of the public be able to make complaints, relatively anonymously. They'll tell us their names, but if they were to make a complaint about me, I wouldn't be able to call the office and say, I want to know exactly who made that complaint. So we don't do that on the online system because there's no way for me to put it so that they don't have to give their name and address.
I understand that, but I'm saying, how do we track? So like at 166 Sassafras Place, at my house,
they are a problem.
we probably are the problem. But I'm saying, how do
Use
we
it
know?
internally.
Right. how
Yes,
do
we use it
know-
internally.
Yeah, internally, how do you know that you get that repeated address month after month or week after week after week? How do you know that?
Yeah, so now we do it internally, either Jim Blair or Jim Leonard or myself, or even Teresa, we can go in and put that address in so that we can see that complaint
That was my
internally.
question. I wasn't saying put a name of a complaint
Okay.
with that address. Just how are you tracking that complaint against the address?
Previously, before we adopted that system, we had a list of complaints. So yearly, we'd keep a list of complaints and what happened to those complaints. So we know if we have a problem property, we know here's the dates. Here's every date that I visited the property. Here's every date that I called the property owner.
Okay. Okay, so we can use that internally.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
We have an introduction for it this evening. We can
Think about that for.
we can ask Jim Blair, some questions at the introduction and then, have it in 2
We
weeks.
may have some citizenry show up.
Sure,
Yes, I'm thinking you may,
sure.
which is fine.
I was
Good.
concerned about this amendment, the change in it, when it had a definite time.
Right.
And that really hit me that's a little extreme. Leaving it to the day before, day after, me is
3 full days,
reasonable,
yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
And I think when you explain to people that this gives the village a tool to go after those who just leave their cans out there all week long. And I know of some people that do that. I wish they didn't. but they never moved their cans. They're there in the same place they were 8 months ago.
They carry their trash from the house to the road.
Yes, and stick it in
Yeah,
it there and it's part of their yard.
And I do, I do understand people go on vacation, people go on work trips, but I really want to emphasize that this is for our repeated offenders who leave their trash cans out all the time, every week, every day. It's not for the one-off person who goes on leaves for vacation on a Friday and puts their trash can out.
Marvin, I mean, one of these habitual offenders is next door to one of your rental properties. I'm sure they don't want guys sitting on their porch looking at a certain person's cans in their yard. Sort of Sherry. Sherry never takes her can, moves her garbage cans.
Sherry,
Montgomery. On William Street.
that's not a rental property. That's sold it. They
Okay,
leave
but
their cans out.
it used to be. She leaves her cans. They've been there for 3 years in the same place. She never moves
Who,
them in,
Sherry?
never moves them out.
Sherry or my tenant?
No, Sherry does.
Oh, she's your friend. Raise hell.
Well, I
with
know,
her.
I intend to say something to her. That's bugged me ever.
What would you,
No.
what would you think is, I've read just what it says. What do you think about
Bugs me.
giving them 2 warnings? And then
Cite them in the.
write them in.
I don't have any recourse to cite them.
But this would give you
I
something.
mean, within.
Right. I thought Marvin doesn't want to.
Yes.
There's
Oh,
discretion.
within this, yes, right. Yeah, we have a procedure within the office of how many times we contact a person before we send them a certified letter. So
Yeah.
that might be 1 phone call and 1 email, or two phone calls before we send them a certified letter, and then maybe 2 certified letters before we bring them to court. So we do have a procedure where we give people multiple warnings.
It's consistent with
That's what I
everybody.
was gonna ask.
They're all
It's
treated-
consistent within the zoning department.
But
Is that what you mean?
the procedure of giving a phone call or a letter or an email, that whole process, Bailey, is that consistent regardless of what the violation is?
Yes. Yeah, that procedure was written
Car on
regard,
blocks, you're gonna
yes.
Do the same thing with that as you are with a trash can that's left out for multiple weeks on.
yes. Unless it's a huge public safety concern, in which case we might get the police involved.
And that's understandable, but that's few and far between.
Yes, if it's a code violation, we follow the same procedure.
Okay. Yeah, we just want to make sure that that's standardized procedure and it's standard across the board for everything.
And with incorporation of this, assuming this passes, day 1 for everybody. Start there and move forward.
Yes.
So it's not as if somebody's had it out for 3 months at this point, they automatically get cited. It's day 1 procedure initiated because now you have recourse to move forward with it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Chief, I think you had.
I
Call
think
that.
so, like, looking at this, there was several concerns that I had. And really, I'm just kind of looking at it through the lens of like legalities. So the way that it's written, it definitely needs a lot of attention. I think that when we look at a section like that, there's a lot of language in there that physically needs to be defined. We need to define what a container is. So is it a physical container? Is it a trash receptacle or a bag? So that needs to be properly defined. Right away needs to be defined. Front yards needs to be defined. So if it's a corner lot and they place it on the corner on the side of their house, is that considered the front of the lot because it's looked from the view? So.
That's me, buddy, right
Right,
there. That's what
it's
I'm
also-
saying.
It's also me as well.
That's what
So there's a bunch of
my
different
connection is
definitions that physically need to be there. In addition to that, failure to remove containers following pickup could lead to citations. So what type of citations? Criminal citations, and it says could lead, instead of physically saying that whoever violates this section will be guilty of a minor misdemeanor upon the first offense and within 12 months. And then whether it's a misdemeanor every single time or becomes a compound misdemeanor, then that needs to be defined in actual penalties, which this section has no penalties at all. But it does refer to legal requirements, including section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code and the Charter of the Village of Johnston, which I'm not sure exactly what that reads.
So the section, are you talking about the property maintenance section altogether? Because this falls under the property maintenance code.
So like, I'm kind of wondering, should this be listed under littering? Because littering is going to fall within the criminal section. And within that, you put a subsection that talks specifically about containers and receptacles, and then it physically defines those. It defines what the right of way is, it defines what a front yard is, it defines what a public sidewalk is. And incorporates that into penalties, because as it reads right now, like the police don't have anything at all.
Because this would be cited through planning, through zoning and come through the mayor's court, like in,
That's if
like-
Jim takes it. However, again, too, you're also looking at the penalties, so there's no penalties or teeth. At the very end of it says failure to remove containers following pickup could lead to citations, which if I was a person getting cited, I would say, well, it could lead to citations.
It could
What
not.
exactly is a citation? Civil citation, is a criminal citation, so on and so forth. So I think as it's written, it.
Cited in the mayor's
shows a bit of potential.
We do
Was-
have violations and penalties.
that's what I thought.
1193.
Well, within,
Maybe
with it,
it's an ordinance.
with that could aspect that you bring up, chief, wouldn't that fall under the policy discretion that Bailey mentioned with respect to the warnings and certified letters, and that the first several instances probably won't, but several thereafter, if it continues, will, and thus an aggregate could, just depends on what instance you're talking about?
It could. And
Does that make
then,
sense?
just like police, zoning can exercise discretion.
Right.
So they might have the discretion that, hey, we have an internal policy that says that you're going to receive a warning on the first and second. violation. Or we're gonna address the last violation.
Then in my opinion, that word could shall be replaced with shall.
Exactly. And that's what I would read as to. So basically that particular word
So following pickup shall lead to citations, which
Correct.
means it shall
or shall.
aggressively lead up to that citation.
Shall lead to a summons. Because like at that point, you're not citing anybody, because only the police have the authority to issue the citation.
Right.
You're simply summoning them to the court. So I think what we need to do is we need to look at what other communities are doing that are similar and look at what language they're using.
I know Granville is not overtly specific. And Newark is a little bit more strict, but more general in terms of their wording. But they essentially, I mean, Newark, to the extent practical, each container shall be placed at the curbside either the day before the scheduled collection or the day of, and shall be removed from the curbside the day after. So I mean, Newark essentially has the same day before, day after as we're proposing here. To the extent practical, I think is interesting because it lends itself to what you said, Bailey. If somebody goes out of town on a Friday and puts their trash out, the practicability, is removed at that point because you're out of town and you can't do it, but you're still complying because you're utilizing the trash service.
If they go out of town and leave their trash out on Friday, they should get a ticket. Our neighbor's 90 years old, and we either go over and take her trash can in or bring it out for her. And there's neighbors in this town who'll do stuff like that. You
Right.
don't have to leave your trash sitting out on the street all weekend. Like I said at the meeting, how's it gonna look if 2/3 of Main Street goes on vacation and somebody drives through town, you got 30 trash cans sitting out there from Friday night till Monday night or Tuesday?
What I agree with you in the meeting, which is why this is something that we're entertaining, because that would give you the ability to enforce that piece. But to that end, Newark has it. Granville has something on there with respect to, right of way or, in the way for a certain period of time, but it's not overtly specific to that end. But I don't disagree with the point of defining certain things within it,
So like curbside, what is curbside?
Right. Now within Newark, I don't know how it is, but
And I think Mr. Lee, I think it would be good because I believe Dublin does the same program. I believe New Albany does the same program. I believe Westerville does the same program. And it's just a question of how are they wording it and in what section are they wording it?
Do we want to
No
table and
removal
hold
would
it?
be- I'm sorry, Mayor.
Do we want to hold this thing and
Tighten up the language a
tighten
little
up the
bit.
language?
well, it's only a first, it's only an introduction. tonight.
Introduction, you got 2 weeks to
So we can give some feedback on it tonight
Yeah.
and give it 2 weeks to bake, then reintroduce it and have a
Snow
discussion.
removal would be another good example. I believe that that actually is defined within the
Yep.
laws where it can be enforced by law enforcement officers.
We've gone through snow removal.
Right,
It's
so,
always a
so I think that maybe if you really wanted to put the teeth in this, you can let zoning handle it, but then if they don't get the complaints, they hand it to law enforcement to say, hey, these are the steps we've done. Now it's time for you to just issue a summons.
Okay. That's great feedback. I think we can bring that up tonight and then let it sit for 2 weeks, get some more revisions from Bailey and Jim on it, and then revisit it, in 2 weeks when it's up for deliberation, if we feel like that's an appropriate course. Doug, Marvin, what do you think?
I think it's much ado about nothing.
Can you just talk about citing people for putting their trash out on a Friday? You don't have
If-
any way to
if-
do it
if-
without this. I'm just
I
asking.
think we should get more laws, Ben. We need more restrictions on the people here in town. Take more of their rights away and liberties away, instead of going out and talking to them. They say they get complaints and stuff. Who's complaining? If I get mad at you, I call and say Ben's yard's dirty.
Yeah.
And they send zoning out to talk to you, and there's nothing wrong with your yard. How many of these complaints are legitimate and how many of them are not?
And
I have heard nothing about who's complaining, how many we've got, or anything else. Let's take a deep breath and step back and think about it.
we'll ask Jim tonight, get some more specifics tonight. Item number 5 here, we get 10 minute sidewalk replacement program. This is something that we had on there as we were, was it the TAP grant, I think that we had out there that we ultimately didn't get. Doug, this was something that you were talking about as well. Just wanted to bring this up for us as we're continuing on discussions through the balance of the year. But, and that we have 10 minutes, obviously, we're not going to get to a lot of it, but as we go forward through the balance of the year, just wanted to put out there, Doug, with your feelings on kind of where you wanted to take this. Do you still want to talk about it here in safety and service? Do you
think
see
we
it as a
should.
2022 issue or?
I don't think you're gonna get me to budge off of the fact that we are to provide a safe environment for people, and if we're trying to move forward and having more accessibility on the walking of the sidewalks, walk down Main Street towards my house from your house,
Sure,
be on the north side of that.
yeah.
And if you're trying to use a walker or a cane or scooter, it's gonna take one time.
Mhm.
It'll take one time and then things will change.
But just to clarify, I'm not pushing back on the validity of the program itself so much as the context in which we want to discuss it. So is it,
Yeah,
because I know
yeah,
you
the
were,
implementation would be, I still think about that a lot.
yeah,
How does that work?
we can have it as a central item for our meeting coming up next month, because I know you were working on some research and having conversations and things like that with this in your wheelhouse. So they said, just trying to gauge your,
And I think this is gonna be stirred up a little bit more from what I was reading on Facebook. After the planning and zoning meeting last week, someone went on and said about the trash cans. And I see a lot of comments about, what about sidewalks? Our sidewalks are horrible. Why aren't we looking at that? So it's starting to stir up a bunch of stuff.
But sidewalks, there is a
I
mechanism.
think it's great as
It's in the high rise code and I think, we talk about, and if the funding is there and available for the village to take care of it, I got it. But I worry about that portion of it. But I think through the high rise code, can't we send them a letter and say, you shall fix your sidewalk to the village code of X, and that's in front of your house, it's your expense. You need to take care of it. Now, maybe that's not the flavor of council, but I worry about the programs we talked about where we're gonna do it and then assess it to their taxes, because the return on that money is just dreadfully slow. I
Mhm.
mean, we're talking 20 years, to get that paid for. And if there is gonna be an enforcement, I mean, there is a mechanism in place. That's
Yep.
all I want to put out there. There's a
Yep.
mechanism in place.
absolutely.
Maybe we ought to see if finance will talk about it to see if there's any money out there to do partial or partner up with them. If we pay 10 or 20% and residents pay the balance and get a bid for the worst areas. And that would save them money too. If we got a bid, go all the way down Main Street, that's gonna be a lot cheaper.
The conversation has always been around the fair application of the program and the totality of it. And that's why we had conversations about splitting the village up into quadrants and attacking over a 4-year, or, you do one quadrant, over 2 years. And so it's an 8-year program. However you want to break it up, that you do it, in totality over the course of a period of time as an assessment for that particular area. So you don't have residents in certain parts of the village that think they're being singled out around the subjectivity of what is, up to date, a quality sidewalk. Does one cracked it out needs to be replaced? Do you replace the whole sidewalk? Do you just do, the sections of it? Who's responsible if a tree is cracking the street? Is it the village, if it's in the right of way, or is it the resident? So that a lot of those things, because there are a number of municipalities around us that have these types of programs. And we talked about it, and we talked about it mainly from the point of view of the village helping financially. You're right. But the conversation then was, once you start the program, you got to continue the program. So, yes.
I just have when we were talking about this in seriousness, last couple budget cycles, a lot of things have changed for our staff, and I worry, those questions you just asked are going to have to be answered by or implemented by a staff member.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine if I went to Jack or, I don't know who else I'd go to, Mike, and say, hey, here's a new program we're doing. Because you got the finance aspect of it, you got the implementation aspect of it. Those are my worries from a conversation 2-3 years ago to where we are today with the changing needs of the staff. So I think it's a great idea. And it would be a lot easier it'd be easier. I'm not sure if it's better. It'd be easier if we just said, hey, fix your sidewalk.
And that's just the fairness of it, the application of it, the totality of it, and then the definitions around what constitutes a fix, who's liable for it, and do you do the whole sidewalk or chunk? So those are just several of those fundamental questions that we talked about over several budget cycles. Yeah,
Would it be possible to make it a little more tolerable if we've done it what you're talking about, is to get 2 or 3 estimates for this section of town, like let's take Main Street. To go up, fix all Main Street, what it would cost per linear foot. Say, hey, this guy's come in and his cost per linear foot is this much. And here's 3 contractors that you can call and their prices, and you get your sidewalk fixed. And I'm sure that you can get a lot better price. Getting a lot of
If
sidewalks.
they're doing the whole stretch, it's all per square foot, but
If you don't, but what if only one person says yes, that price is going to jump.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's giving a price if you're doing the whole stretch in a certain amount of time.
Chicken and the egg.
If you have 2 guys here and then 5 houses where people say, no, we don't have the money, and 1 house, that price cannot be consistent.
Well, we've got a couple minutes here before council starts. Sounds like there's some teeth to this discussion. So let's put this on first thing for next September. It is August, yeah, for September. And we can kind of go from there. But any ideas anybody has? Doug, I think I shared some of the research that I made with it and things like that, but
They definitely need fixed.
yeah.
It's just how we're gonna go about doing it. I
And that
think
one
that's the
question that
mechanism.
resonates through my mind when I'm thinking about it is what Jim Leonard said a while back about that, is you're gonna have residents whose sidewalks have been replaced by the 62 project. And then other residents are gonna say, well, theirs got replaced for free. And when he said that, then it starts ringing in my ear.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate complaint that we're gonna hear.
And do you replace them to the current standard, or you replace them to
Right.
what
What they were.
they were? There's a big difference in the width.
Another thing we could do is we could send a letter to the people, say, we're citing your sidewalks in disrepair. Are you interested in getting a bid from the contractors and having it repaired, or do you want to wait till next year? We repair it and put it on your tax bill?
Yeah, if council's willing to front
That's-
the money on year two, absolutely.
That's the Jim's point about the recoupability of
Yeah.
the funds over a period of time.
Right.
But with that, we'll bring that up here for September, so we have time to transition here to council. But real quick, before we adjourn, is there any other business that we want to bring up? I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?